The sun shone brightly over the island, reflecting off the crystal-clear waters that surrounded the luxurious dive resort. Palm-thatched cabanas adorned with vibrant flowers welcomed tourists who were enjoying themselves on the soft, white sand. The smell of the sea mingled with the joyful sounds of laughter and tropical music, creating a vibrant and inviting atmosphere. Lucas, an adventurer at heart, led his group of friends as they set out to enjoy a few days in this paradise. Beside him, Sophia watched the waves crash against the shore, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had always been the most cautious one of the group, and the idea of diving into unknown waters echoed her deepest concerns. Raphael, with his sarcastic humor, cracked jokes about the trip while Clara, the underwater photography enthusiast, busily prepared her camera, ready to capture every moment. "It's going to be epic," Lucas exclaimed, holding a towel as he approached the group. "I can't wait to see that wreck everyone's talking about." "You and your adventurous ideas," Sophia replied, crossing her arms. "Be careful. There are some things better left alone." "Oh, come on, Sophie," Raphael teased. "It's just a dive. What could go wrong?" As they walked toward the resort's reception, the group got lost in animated conversations about the activities they planned to do. The day promised to be filled with new experiences, but an uncertainty lingered in the air, a subtle energy that made them slightly uneasy, even though they were determined to enjoy their trip. With their luggage dropped off in their rooms, they prepared for the first diving briefing. Excitement grew, accompanied by a feeling that the waters held secrets yet to be revealed. "It's just a story to scare us, right?" he said, trying to diffuse the tension. But beneath his bravado, a hint of uncertainty lingered. As the briefing concluded, something shifted in the air. A subtle chill enveloped them, igniting a flicker of curiosity mingled with fear. Though they were determined to enjoy their adventure, an unsettling feeling crept into their thoughts. Could there be truth in the legends lurking beneath those azure depths? The following day, the group gathered for the diving orientation session in the resort's conference room, where tourists from all over the world were eagerly awaiting the instructor's instructions. The walls were adorned with vibrant photos of marine life and shipwrecks that surrounded the island, sparking the imagination of the divers. The instructor, a tall man with a firm voice and serious expression, began discussing safety and the necessary procedures for a successful dive. But as his presentation progressed, he started to mention an ancient legend involving a ship that had sunk in the nearby waters and the disappearances that had occurred since then. "We call it the Wreck of Lament," the guide explained, his tone growing somber. "Many divers have ventured into its waters, but few have returned. Those who came back were never the same. Some speak of a presence, something that watches from the depths." Exchanged glances filled the room, and a subtle tension began to form among the friends. Sophia, her expression worried, murmured, "This doesn't sound good. We should be careful." Raphael, ever the skeptic, laughed. "They're just stories to scare tourists. Don't believe in them." Clara, however, was fascinated. "I need to film the wreck. It must be incredible," she exclaimed, barely able to contain her excitement. As the guide continued discussing precautions and risks, the group couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. Each of them carried a desire for adventure, but in the back of their minds, the legend left them uneasy. The urge to explore the unknown waters was at odds with the growing caution within them. By the end of the session, the group exchanged looks, and Raphael's indifference did little to dispel the sense that something was lurking, concealed in the shadows of the depths. The following morning, the group was both excited and anxious as they prepared for their long-anticipated dive. Under the soft sunlight, they donned their gear, checked their air tanks, and gathered on the beach where the boat awaited them. The salty scent of the sea mingled with the gentle sound of the waves and the excited laughter of the divers. Once on board, the boat swayed gently on the waves as the guide began to discuss the location they were about to explore, a cove famous for its rich marine life and, of course, for the shipwreck that loomed over them like a shadow. Clara constantly adjusted her underwater camera, eager to capture every detail of the experience. "Remember," the guide said, looking intently into each of their eyes, "the key is to stay calm and follow the instructions. Don't stray too far from each other, and keep safety in mind." As they approached the dive site, the water grew clearer, and the view of the seabed was mesmerizing. Colorful tropical fish danced among vibrant corals. Clara's heart raced with excitement as she thought about all the images she could capture. Finally, the guide signaled, and they plunged into the refreshing waters. The sensation of gliding beneath the surface was liberating. The group carefully explored, navigating through the reefs and uncovering the wonders of the underwater world. As they neared the wreck, the scenery began to change. The colorful reefs gave way to a tangled, crumbling structure. It was as if time had stood still, enveloping them in a feeling of reverence and sadness. Clara filmed attentively while her friends explored, a mix of awe and apprehension washing over them. When they reached one of the compartments of the sunken ship, something shifted. A cold current swept through the water, and an unusual silence fell upon them, as if the ocean were holding its breath. While filming, Clara noticed something moving in the shadows of the ship, a vague shape that seemed to be watching them. She blinked repeatedly, thinking it was just a trick of the light. But that faint movement was there, more real than any optical illusion. The group continued their exploration, but a subtle hum of concern began to wash over them, like a vague warning echoing from the depths. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they swam around the wreck, unaware of the horrors still to come. As the friends explored the wreckage of the sunken ship, the atmosphere around them became increasingly immersive and unsettling. Clara, completely absorbed in her filming, moved between the ruins, capturing every angle when suddenly she noticed some personal belongings scattered across the ocean floor. A rusty wristwatch, an old doll, and a faded photograph floated near a broken frame. The items seemed to tell forgotten stories, memories of lives lost to the depths. "Look at this!" Clara called out, grabbing her friend's attention. "It's like we're in the middle of a mystery." Sophia examined a small amulet, a necklace with a pendant that somehow seemed important. The heaviness in the air was palpable, and she couldn't shake off the strange energy emanating from the place. "I think we should go," she said hesitantly, trying to ignore the shiver that ran down her spine. Lucas, eager to explore further, insisted, "We came here for an adventure. Let's uncover more about this." As they approached one of the compartments of the wreck, Clara noticed that the shadow that had intrigued her before continued to appear in her footage. She paused for a moment, determined to capture the strange image, but the shadow vanished quickly each time she tried to focus. Frustration began to morph into an unsettling feeling that something was following her. Joking about the situation, Raphael laughed. "Maybe it's the spirit of an old diver wanting to reclaim his spot. We're invading his home." Everyone laughed nervously, but fear hung in the air, previously masked by the excitement of adventure. With each movement they made, it felt as though the water around them was getting darker, as if the ocean itself was absorbing heat and sunlight. As the friends continued to explore, the mood grew heavier. The silence became oppressive, transforming their initial joy into a foreboding sense. The murmuring of the ocean now sounded like a warning, a distant echo of lost voices. Clara's camera kept recording, but what she didn't realize was that the images she was capturing were more than just simple memories. They could become the testimony of a terrifying truth that was yet to come. After a dive that left them more intrigued than satisfied, the group returned to the resort, eager to see what they had captured on their cameras. The atmosphere on the boat was a mix of excitement and a hint of tension, as Clara could hardly wait to review the footage. Once they reached their room, they gathered around the television, anxiety visible on each face. Lucas grabbed the remote and pressed the play button while everyone settled in to watch the recording. The first images were breathtaking: vibrant fish, corals in stunning shapes, and the wreck itself, which looked magnificent underwater. A sense of reverence hung in the air. However, as the footage progressed to the part inside the wreck, the mood shifted. The frame shifted, and the shadow began to appear in the images, a vague figure looming in the depths. "What is that?" Sophia asked, her voice barely above a whisper as everyone leaned closer to the screen. As the shadow moved quickly, Clara remembered how she felt while filming. A chill ran through her body as she watched. On the screen, the silhouette seemed to dance, almost as if it were playing, yet something about its form was undeniably unsettling. "This can't just be a trick of the water, right?" Raphael said, his skepticism beginning to waver. "But what could it be?" "We need to go back," Clara exclaimed, her excitement almost palpable. She felt an irresistible attraction to the figure. "I'm not sure that's a good idea," Sophia replied, concern filling her eyes. "We've already heard the stories, and this is not something to take lightly." Ignoring Sophia's concerns, Clara's determination began to swell. The shadow had something to reveal, and she was resolute in uncovering what truly lurked in the depths. After hours of heated discussion and debate, the decision was made. The following day, the group prepared to return to the wreck, each grappling with the mix of curiosity and fear that now enveloped them. The sun had barely risen on the horizon when they gathered on the beach, ready for another expedition into depths that had paradoxically become both familiar and feared. The boat ride was marked by a heavy silence, broken only by the sound of the engine and the splash of the waves. Clara, anxious, reviewed her camera and equipment while Lucas attempted to keep the group's spirits high, talking about the images they would capture and how it would become the highlight of their trip. As they arrived at the site, the atmosphere felt charged, as though the sea too was holding its breath. The water, a deep blue hue, seemed to reflect their emotions, blending with Sophia's hidden apprehension. She hesitated, sensing that there was something deeper in the discomfort that lingered in her chest, but she remained silent, knowing everyone was committed to the idea of diving. Once they submerged, the feeling of freedom was quickly overshadowed by a growing sense of oppression. The waters around them appeared darker than on their first expedition, and the silence became suffocating, as if the sea was sealing away something that should remain hidden. As the group approached the wreck once more, they felt drawn to the darkness within. However, as they swam, tension escalated, each of them sensing that the waters were offering more than just an adventure. Clara led the way, illuminating every corner with her underwater flashlight, determined to find the shadow she had previously glimpsed. As they descended deeper, the feeling of being watched became undeniable, and the atmosphere was on the verge of transforming into a nightmare. The atmosphere inside the wreck was thick with unease and mystery. Clara, camera in hand, led the group as they cautiously moved through the confined space, shrouded in shadows and oppressive silence. The water around them felt colder, and a chill ran down Sophia's spine, even as she tried to ignore her growing anxiety. "Let's be quick," Lucas suggested, attempting to keep the group's morale high. "Last time we didn't see much." However, the sense of urgency soon transformed into a palpable tension. As Clara drifted away from the group, she began to feel her own apprehension building. She glimpsed the creature, that elusive shadow, creating an inexplicable connection between her desire to film and a deep fear that she could no longer ignore. Just one more shot, just to be sure, she thought, barely aware that something was truly watching her. When Clara approached a narrow corridor, the beam of her flashlight caught a flicker of movement to her left. She swung the camera toward the shadow, but as she focused, the figure vanished once again, as if it had dissolved into the water. Discomfort morphed into panic when she realized she was alone. "Clara!" Lucas called, but his voice vanished into the echoes of the wreck. He and the others began to search for her, their faces marked by concern. As Clara turned to return to the group, she felt a presence behind her. Her heart raced in sync with the mounting fear. She turned around and, for the first time, clearly saw the shadow, a distorted, amorphous shape floating, blending into the darkness. A cold sensation enveloped her, triggering her survival instincts. But before she could swim toward her friends, the presence moved like lightning. Lucas, Raphael, and Sophia finally found her, but what they saw on her face was a reflection of terror they couldn't comprehend. Words failed them as the menacing shadow continued to dance around them, seeming to feed off the fear that permeated the atmosphere. A distant sound caused Clara to lose her composure. The shadow pulsed, and the voice that came from it echoed from within her own mind. The dive that was supposed to be an adventure had turned into a nightmare, and each of them began to realize that not all secrets of the ocean should be uncovered.